just figured I'd drop this quick video. I'm redoing the brakes on Earthquake. Now, whenever I tell somebody about this monster truck, they say, oh, well, how can you afford to do that? Well, what I tell all my customers, it only takes time and money. A lot of people don't have time, but they have the money. Well, you scratch that. Some people don't have the time, they have the money, so they pay me to do it. I don't have the money, but I have the time. So, prime example is the brake system. If you go to, whatever.com and get a brake rotor for this, it's $200, $250. It's actually only $15 worth of steel, but it takes about 5 hours to machine a rotor out of a chunk of steel. So here's what I'm doing. Now, that is somebody I paid to plasma out a rotor. And it's not the greatest, but it didn't suck and it stopped the truck. This is 3/8 of an inch thick. This is a 1/2 inch thick. Now I already cut it out and you can see the marks I have on there. I'm going to drill it and then machine it, and then by the end of the day it'll be a finished brake rotor. But that's the rough blank. That's $15 worth of steel rather than $200. That's how I can afford to build a monster truck. I build all the parts myself from raw materials. So we're going to go out to the milling machine and cut a brake rotor out of this mess. Okay, a little bit more work done. All the holes are drilled. The 8 smaller holes are the mounting holes that'll put it on the 5-ton pinion flange. The big hole is for the nut to come through. Anyway, edges are cleaned up a little bit, holes are drilled, everything looks good so far, so now we are going to take it out to the mill and start machining out the actual rotor face. Okay, so I don't have every tool I need. To do a 12-inch rotor, you really need a 12-inch chuck on your lathe, or a brake rotor lathe or whatever. I don't have any of that stuff. What I do have is a milling machine with a 4-jaw chuck on an indexer and a fly cutter. So that's what I'm going to use, and this is what the setup looks like. So now there's my brake rotor, here's the milling machine. There's my brake rotor with the fly cutter, and as I turn the indexer, that will spin very slowly. I'm going to spin it much, much slower than this, and then that will make a round face on the rotor. Somewhat less than ideal because this makes it very time consuming, but it's what I got. It doesn't cost me anything extra for tooling, so this is what I'm using. Okay, so we have one face cut in the rotor, and the advantage to having to do this on the indexer is I can actually go back with the fly cutter and cut the wave pattern into the rotor. So in the long run it works out, but here's one side cut. So that's what it looks like after machining, and that way we have our wave pattern machined into the rotor. Now I'm going to flip this over and do the same to the other side. And a big reason for doing this is I'm cutting this surface down about 60 thousandths. I'll flip it over and do the same on the other side. And that way there, when I go to put it back on the truck, I can use the same hardware because the center of the disc is 3/8 just like the old rotor. So, it works out, and 60 thousandths is more than plenty. It's about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. It's more than enough to make that wave work and have the pads shed heat, which is the whole reason for the wave. So it alternates high and low surface area on the brake pad, and it builds heat slower and dissipates heat faster. So that's why the wave rotor. So there we are, finished product. Rotor is done, ready to go on the truck next to the old one I took off. You can see the difference in thickness. There's 3/8, there's 1/2 inch. Anyway, nice looking rotor, and it should do everything it's supposed to do. And it's got the relief cut on both sides, and it's still really hot. But anyway, there you go. Let's go put it on the truck. Okay, so here it is. That's done. That is Earthquake's new brake setup. Now we have wave rotors that are a 1/2 inch thick and 4 piston calipers. This should stop so much better than the old setup. Now I still have to put the brake guards on it and make different mounting tabs for those, but new brakes. Can't wait to try them out. I'm glad you guys follow along. I try to give content to where if you wanted to build something like this, you could. Just some tips and tricks that I use. So hopefully that we'll have a bigger field of old school trucks and we can have our own events either in conjunction with or separate from the modern trucks. But keep telling us what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you down the road.